Hello and welcome everyone. We are live after round 21 of the AFL Fantasy season with only 3 rounds left to go. We're here to recap all the action. I'm your host and AFL Fantasy Fanatic, Tim Guest, and you can find me on socials at TimGuestAU. And for those listening on the pod, it's Sunday the 4th of July. I was going to say July. It's actually August. Come in and join us next time on live on YouTube or X. And of course, thanks to those who've sent in their questions. And if you want a question answered, simply comment on the platform you are watching. We'll get to as many as we can at the end. Now, joining me as always are my co-hosts. Firstly, starting off with Bales, DT. Bales, how was the weekend for you, mate?
Yeah, good. Just got to put the feet up. You know, Content Creators Cup. I just had the week off, so didn't have to sort of battle it out like the two ball boys did. But yeah, no, it was not too bad. It's just good. We've got a full panel tonight. Obviously, if you guys listen to the pod, how about you check out the video? Because we got Tim's cameras on, so it should be a good one. So yeah, looking forward to chatting all things fantasy.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. And turn to the other member of our show. It's Jordox. You can find him at Jordox 2020. Mate, how was the round for you?
Yeah, it was an exhausting one. I've just ridden home a qualifying final in Dream Team and got the chocolate. So shout out to Ray, my mate, who I just got over the top of. So I've got the week off. Thank goodness for that, because now I can spend some time looking at my AF side, which is looking a little bit hairy.
Wow. Like Bale said, we do certainly have a full panel of guests tonight. So let's turn our attention to our special guests. It's our buds over at the Ball Boys Fantasy Podcast. It's Mitch and Luke. How are we, boys?
Doing well, mate. Doing well. Yeah, had a very stressful weekend. I'm pretty excited for the end of the year to come, just so I can stop pulling my hair out with some of these decisions. But we made it through better than I thought. So yeah, happy to be here.
We didn't quite have.
I don't know. I've been following, but I haven't been following this weekend. So I'm keen to hear in just a moment, mate. But first we'll turn to your partner in crime there, Luke, mate. How are you? How was the weekend for you, mate?
Yeah, good. Not quite as relaxing as what Bales was mentioning over there before. Mitch and I were just writing home some matchups in the Content Creators Cup. So he just got over Roy, and I had a real close one there with Jeppa at the end that could have gone either way. So
we're right at the pointy end of the season now, aren't we, boys?
Indeed, we are. Fun times.
All right, well, let's kick it off. I want to hear firstly from Mitch. I mean, obviously, where was it 6 you were last week, mate? Is that where it was?
Yeah.
Tell us, mate, how'd you go this week?
I dropped 1 rank, so I'm currently ranked 7th. I made up, I think it was like 14 points on first place, but still like 160 points away from first. So I've sort of not. Yeah, don't think the car is going to be happening, but I still think I can definitely get a top 10, maybe a top 5 finish. Scored a 24.71 with a couple of things go my way today. A couple of players that I don't have doing poorly. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with the round with where I thought it was going after a big 150 on my head from Tristan Sherry.
Oh, that guy.
Having him and a few people around captaining him. So all in all, it's okay, but like I said, I'm stressed to my ears. I'm doubting myself with all this on. And
you should have seen the carry on during that North Melbourne Richmond game.
How could you watch it? How could you watch it? Don't do it to yourself. Just don't look when North play.
Look, maybe that's the key. Maybe it's time to set up a YouTube camera in the back corner of the room so we can just get a good wide angle view and just watch the pain.
Yeah. Dead set. I think his phone almost went through my living room wall at one point there, so he's almost up for a fast break.
Well, I remember watching Tristan Sherry go 150. We're both Richmond fans, so we're watching that game from a Richmond perspective. And I was rooting for North Melbourne that game. I won't lie. So I was pretty happy. We got the most important loss of the season, so secure that number 1 pick. So at least we did that. At least Richmond can get one thing right, and that is losing.
All right, let's turn our attention to the boys and see how they went. Bales, we'll start with you, mate. How'd you go for the week?
So 24-25, so not too bad. That Tristan Cherry fella, far out. I didn't think that trade of Cherry to Sweet would still be haunting me to this round, and it still is. It's cost me 2 150s in a row. My top 100 dream is done now. I don't even know how much I lost, but now it's just top 500 would be nice. I'm 705 overall. Round rank was just outside 5,000, so pretty good considering I didn't have Cherry, but Yeah, it's just the scores are massive at the moment. Like back-to-back weeks of 2,400, and I'm underwhelmed. And people are putting up 2,500s and 2,600s, and absolutely crazy. So, yeah, not too bad.
Let me overwhelm you then, Bales.
Yes,
I scored a measly 2,301, which, again, doesn't sound too bad, but nah, it was shocking. I had a tonless ruck line for the first time probably this year. And when you got Sherry and Marshall doing what they're doing, this is why it's like sinking sand for my season. Brought in Tom Stewart for Luke Ryan.
Oh,
don't you love it? And I brought in Peatling and benched him for Simpkins 80. I thought I'll take the 80. That's how, yeah.
Just on Luke Ryan, I was sitting there watching this game, and before the game started, I was just like, I've traded Luke Ryan out, and I put in a group chat. I'm like, I guarantee you, Frere will go back to their chip mark game. Ryan will go 120 plus.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
Well, at least the Dons got up. Not that I'm bitter. So I'm overall now. I've slid. This is probably my worst ranking for the season, which is since the early part. So I'm at 2,944. So that's disappointing. Let's see if I can get back in the 2K and come home strong.
Well, I will now blow everyone's hair back with my massive score of a 22.99, which slid me back about 1,000 spots to 6,372. So I don't even know what I really did wrong, but I guess Treloar, a rosy out to Treloar didn't really help. But yeah, look, I guess, I didn't. There's just a lot of average scores across my team, I guess. But yeah, that's just how it is, right? And I had a tonless ruck line as well, Jordox. So yeah, look, so the end of the season can't come quickly enough for me. But let's get into our +3, -3s. We'll start off with you, Mitch.
Wait, we didn't get Luke's score, did we?
Oh, did I skip you, Luke? Sorry, mate.
Oh,
all these
right.
people are getting lost.
You're all good, right? 24-28 for me to just edge over Jeppa. So nothing crazy, but just kept me inside the top 2K club. I'm just around 1,600 there. So nothing to write home about, but got the dub.
Yeah, especially against Jeppa this week. That's an important win as well.
For sure.
Good stuff. Well, we will go to the +3, -3s now. Mitch, mate, start with you.
I'll go +3 to Nick Newman. He's been a guy on my side for the last little while since after the buys. A little bit salty that everyone, I think a few people jumped on this round. So, but the 145 and just watching him play, man, he's a gun. He's actually a really good player. One of the best tackling defenders, I think, in the game. I'd love to see his tackling percentage, or how few missed tackles or tackles broken he's got. But 145 and someone who still is semi-unique in the top rank. So he gets my +3. The -3, it's Tim English, man. Tim English he's frustrating. It's a 98, but it's just the fact that he's not Tristan Sherry and the fact that he missed 2 very gettable goals and just been underwhelming with some of the good matchups. He didn't go huge the last few weeks. I thought he would run Max around silly on the Friday night, but he's just not getting used much. He doesn't seem to be commanding the ball like they did. 1 tackle just won't get it done. So yeah, it's more just the fact that he's not Tristan Sherry that is more his issue.
Yeah. -3, mate.
It's
Tim English. Yeah, he gets the negative. Yeah.
I'm on 5 tonight, aren't I, boys?
It's because you can see your face. You're being distracted by your own good looks. Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. What is it? All right. So we'll do Luke this time, so I don't skip you, mate. Why don't you do your +3, -3, mate?
I'm going to go a little obscure here. I'm actually going to make my +3 Jeppa because I don't
salt in the wound.
No, well, let me just talk you through this, and I'm happy to stand corrected because the app, the AFL Fantasy app, is horrible and normally plays funny buggers. But going into that last matchup, it looked like it was going to be his Marshall and Jack Steele to mine nothing, and I was up by about 230 points or something like that. And just as that last game came in, we both had the C on Zorko. We both rolled the dice there. As the game came in, Steele changed to Dunkley. So I'm assuming that was Jep's trade this week, and had he kept Steele,
Yeah.
he would have beaten me.
He would have beaten you by, like, 1 point or something like that.
Thank you, Jepper. You little ripper, +3. So that's that's the fine margins, and we'll talk about it later, I'm sure. Is just like you trade for a matchup and it goes wrong, or you go VC to C and it goes wrong, but it's that time of year. -3 for me is Nick Martin's first half. He salvaged that score, and still the score's rubbish. So he's going to have to go, I would have thought. Nick Martin, you can't be giving us 20s in a half at this time of year.
All right, excellent. All right, Bales, rolling on to you, mate. +3, -3.
Mitch stole my +3. I was going to give it to Nick Newman. That the Dacos to Newman trade definitely worked, but the Ryan to Treloar trade didn't work as well. But my +3, I'll give it to the Bont. 135. I had a feeling he was going to go big, and part of me probably should have gone with the gut and maybe just gone something different, because I'm trying to chase points and go him VC instead of Treloar, but I'll still take 116 for my VC. But 135 from the Bont. He had 4 tough matchups, sort of, as the Bull Boys call him. He looked a bit camelish the last month, sort of not really getting amongst it. But this game, that first quarter, he, 62 points was just incredible. He's still the best player in the comp in my eyes. He might not win the Brownlow this year, but I think he's still up there. -3. A few guys that could get this. I'll give it to Heaney as well, because I think that because we've all got him, I don't think we've been sort of looking at him too much, but he's been pretty bad since round 15. So he's only gone 2 times over 100 since round 15. Both of them have been low tons. The other scores 86, 79, 78, and 68. Like, we're complaining about guys like Brian Myers, who scored poorly this week. All these other guys that score poorly in the forward line or get subbed or whatever. And we've got Heaney, who everyone's got, and he's putting up these stinkers at the moment. And
you know
Sydney
why, though?
Sydney are awful. That's probably the other part of it. 112-point loss. I certainly didn't see that coming. So, but yeah, -3 for Heaney.
You know why Heaney's fallen off? Because he was ineligible for the Brownlow. Can't win the Charlie, so he's given up.
Might be something to that, I reckon.
Surely not.
You never know.
All right, Jordox, throwing it to you, mate. +3, -3.
Oh, special mention, Connor Rosé. I felt like he was going to bounce back. Sorry, Timmy, I know you traded him out. But LDU gets the 3. He's just one of those guys. You know those guys you get stuck with. Like, they're never too bad to get rid of them. They're never brilliant enough that everyone else gets them. That's been LDU. And, he gave me a 123 this week, so props to him. -3, it's pretty harsh because the guys had a cracking year, but I thought I'd do something a bit different and try and be a bit clever on Friday night, and I put the VC on Flanders, thinking, potentially he could have a good time in Perth. But well done, Tim, to your Eagles. That was a cracking game, by the way. But just the paltry 73 from Flanders. So obviously didn't take that, and chucked the C on Zork today. And yeah, it wasn't terrible. But yeah, so LDU and Flanders.
Well, mate, I would say that I wouldn't call it was a great game. I'd say it was a great second half. The first half was fucking atrocious. I was actually, I've never been at a Friday night game or a night game of footy where I've thought about leaving.
Wow.
That first half was just absolutely atrocious.
Well, I only started watching at half time, so that stacks up.
Second half was a completely different game of footy. But anyway, +3, -3 for me. I would have given it to LDU. I think it's his high score for the year, so I think he definitely deserves it this week. But obviously Jordox did, so I'll give it to Lockie Whitfield, who was my high scorer for the week with a 137. And my -3 goes to Brodie Grundy, who, once again, having Brodie Grundy in that ruck line when you got Marshall and bloody Cherry throwing up 130s and 150s. That's a 46 point to whatever it is, 70 or 80 point, differential. So that just absolutely came.
The Laddams late in was a killer for Grundy owners.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens with him moving forward, but I think there'll be some movements in my ruck line this week for sure. All right, well, that takes care of our +3 and -3. We're just going to quickly whip through the AFL Fantasy Content Creators Cup, proudly brought to you by Infinite Wealth. Make smarter financial decisions, where winning coaches will get $5,000 for their favourite charity. Mitch, you decided who your charity is this year, mate? Same as last year?
Yeah, same as last year. Trying to go back to back.
Well, Bales might take out the content creators cut, right? So overall, is definitely looking like you, but we'll see what happens with the league win.
Yeah,
But
I'm a bit out of form. I've had a few losses in the last several rounds, so Bales, you're probably looking good.
Yeah, well, you might even have your eye on the prize as well, right? So he might be able to sneak around the back and steal it from you. But anyway, look, guys, just also a big special announcement. So I've got a live event that's going to be coming up on Saturday, the 31st of August here in Perth. It's going to be at the Camfield. It's a one-day intensive. It goes from basically 9 a.m. through to 6 p.m. This is the live all-day event where I teach my clients basically everything I know. As an example, if you have a mortgage, I'll teach you how to pay it off up to 3 times faster. If you're paying too much tax, I can teach you how to save thousands each year. And if you're someone who's committed to building your wealth, then I can show you how I bought 13 properties by the age of 27. So just head across to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy to claim and for more details. But yeah, Bales, why don't you take us through? I mean, we've already kind of talked about a couple, but brief us through, go through what happened this week in the AFL Fantasy Content Creators Cup.
So we got obviously the two boys on tonight. So good time as well because both of them won. So obviously Mitch, as you said before, beat Roy 24-71 to 24-02. So unfortunately Roy's year in the Content Creators Cup is done. And Luke getting the tight win there over Jeppa 24-28 to 24-09. So that sets up two massive clashes between the Warn Dog and Luke in the second preliminary final. We've got the Warn Dog jumping on Tuesday night for a Q&A. So make sure you guys jump onto that and we'll chat to Warnie about that and a heap of other stuff. And then the big clash, the premiership game. It's unfortunate it's in the prelim final. It is Bales up against Mitch in that big game. I don't know last time I outscored Mitch in a week, so hopefully I get done over here.
Well played.
Hopefully Mitch scores well enough that he keeps going towards the number one spot, but I score better than that and can go towards top 500 and in the prelim. So yeah, no, looking forward to it. But also just quick shout out to bloody Sanch from obviously just had the little one, I think a few days ago as well. So congrats to him as well for that. But on a fantasy note, 25-46 is what he scored this week. He's now up to just outside the top 1,000 and he was in outside 10K buys. He's absolutely killing it at the moment. Probably informed coach in all of fantasy, I reckon, at the moment. So shout out to him for coming home like a steam.
Is it pretty standard that players do well when they've had a baby?
A baby bump.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go. All right. Well, sounds like it's time for us to get stuck into the game. So let's kick it off with Friday night with the Western Bulldogs defeating Melbourne by 51 points in front of 33,000 people at Marvel Stadium. The subs for this game, Caleb Daniel replaced Tom Liberatore at three-quarter time after Libba injured that right ankle. And then Daniel Turner replaced Stephen May at halftime after he got that rib knock.
Yeah, so some big scores to start in this game. So we had 5 players over 110. So we had the Bont, who we mentioned before, the 135, Treloar 116, Bailey Dale 114, and Caleb Poulter as well with a 112. So if you picked him up in draft this week, be pretty happy with that. But Big Maxi Jordox 136 looked good. And we heard pre-game Simon Goodwin saying about he's going to play sore rest of the year, and we're going to sort of try and manage him through. But didn't look like that on the weekend. Obviously, good matchup against English. Is this just a good matchup and we're not trusting it because he's playing sore, or do you think there's a world where you could go for Max Gawn for a little bit of a pod outside of your Cherries and Marshall?
Oh, of course you could. It's Max Gawn. I mean, he had a few weeks of, those lower scores leading into his injury game, and then he missed 1 or 2 with the injury. Came back last week, was it against Briggs? I think it was a bit of a wet, cold night. I've been waiting for this from Gawn. I wasn't overly surprised, but to have him do that on the Friday night was huge. Again, not to talk about Dream Team again, but he was up against Bont. So when Bont was on the 62 at quarter time, I was packing my DAX, but Big Maxi brought it home. So, no, that was a great score. And I don't know if he's definitely worth looking at as a pod, but like when we get to the other two, when we talk about them, I've completely flipped on that. They're must have. I don't care about pods anymore.
Yeah, I think I agree. But we will turn our attention to English in a sec. But Rivers got a 101 as well, so he was pretty good. I think his second half he had near 70 points or had over 70 points, so he was really good there. But Mitch, Tim English, 98. Obviously, we both have him. Is that obviously? Are you looking at moving him out this week to a Tristan Cherry? And would you suggest people, if they don't have a Marshall or Cherry, moving an English to one of those two guys that don't have them?
It's definitely a trade you'd have to consider. Is
that what you're doing though?
It's easy to say when you look at the last. I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'll wait till the last minute. It's easy to say that because of the last 2 weeks, Tristan Cherry's gone back-to-back 150s and English has gone back-to-back 90s. But you look at the matchups. English has gone Sydney and so he's gone Grundy and Max Gawn in back-to-back matchups, and he scored 90 in both of them. And Cherry's had the two basically best matchups in the game. So it's easy to sort of say, yep, trade it there and you're going to make up a bunch of points. But I still think that English is going to concede points to Cherry. I'd have to think it's not 50 points every week. So it is just a question of, is that the trade that's going to make you the most amount of points compared to something else in your team? Like I said, he could have kicked another couple goals here and it would have been like maybe a 110 score and it looks a bit better. Adelaide, North, Giants in his next 3. It's an okay run. He's got the hardest out of the way now. The run for the other 2 is still better. So I do think that eventually, whether it's this week or next week, you probably want to have Marshall and Cherry. But yeah, I guess it just depends on what other moves you might have to make.
Yep. Yeah, no, good thoughts there. And Clayton Oliver, last one, just touched on as well, 62 points, keeping himself nice and cheap as a preseason option, so we can potentially look at him next year and see how he goes. But yeah, again, just struggling to do much outside of these 22 touches. So cool. We'll move on to the Saturday games, Tim.
Yes. The mighty West Coast Eagles defeated the Gold Coast by 10 points in front of 38,000 people at Optus Stadium. Subs to this game, Clay Hall replaced Harry Edwards after he copped that head knock in the second quarter, and Malcolm Roses Jr. replaced Joel Jeffrey in the final quarter for the Gold Coast. Then Oscar Allen also discarded a finger here, and Ben King copped a head knock.
Yep. So top scoring here was Jared Witts. Would have helped a fair few draft coaches out there with 141. That was part of the reason I was also talking about Cherry, because Cherry's got West Coast next week. So very similar ruckman to Witts, could go quite well there. Then you had Jack Darling got 121, played the best game I've seen him play in a long time there. Rao 117 and Duggan 114. Some good scores for draft coaches there. Noah Anderson with the 98, 30 touches. Normally that translates to a decent score, but 0 tackles and only 5 marks meant that his score wasn't up there. And outside that, there wasn't many huge scores. Obviously, Flanders was poor with a 73. He was off the bench for 13 minutes in the last quarter as well. Only had 2 points. That's sort of what kept his score quite low. And that's really about it. Luke, is there anyone that you want to touch on from this game? Because obviously not many of us own many outside of like a Flanders.
Yeah, there's not a heap to get around. I mean, last week we were definitely talking on Monday's show about the potential for Noah Anderson to be a smoky with that really, really juicy 4-game run, finishing with Richmond in the last round. But, you know, that run is kind of based on the premise that Gold Coast are going to go out there and dominate some of these teams. And like you said, he did from a kind of like possession perspective, but just didn't add the tackles that we needed. So I still don't think that he's a guy that we should necessarily discount for the remaining 3 games. But what we saw on the weekend didn't fill us with confidence like we thought it might.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. We'll move on to the Saturday games.
All right, North defeated Richmond by 13 points in front of 36,000 people at Marvel Stadium. Robert Hansen Jr. replaced Dylan Stevens in the third quarter after he injured that ankle, and then Camden McIntosh replaced Steely Green in the third quarter after he also injured his ankle.
Yeah, so obviously we talked about the X-Man, 150. I think he's pretty much sewn up Fantasy Player of the Year. Just been a great pick, 580K, and yeah, just loves it. I can see Luke there, just absolutely loves a cuddle. I see he literally there's yeah, he gets a +5 all the time. He taps it down to an opposition player, tackles him. It just rinse and repeat. So, yeah, he's going to be a guy we might even start with next year, to be honest, with how good he's going. LDU, as you boys mentioned, for 123 was really good. Kicked 3 goals as well. Just really classy player. And Would have helped a lot of classic and draft coaches there. Nank with a 123. Mitch, Richmond fan. Nank, could he be a potential pod in the ruck?
I think if I was looking for a pod in the ruck, I'd rather go Max Gawn. I just think that you're probably chasing someone who you feel like the other two guys you're going against are captain options. I don't think I'd be comfortable putting the captaincy on a Nank, whereas I would feel like I could do that for Max Gawn. So if I'm going against two other captain options, I'd want a captain option to go against them. So I think Nank doesn't tick that box for me. I think we've got to be really selective with our rucks. We can't sort of be flirting around with the other guys because I gave a 98 my -3, 98 and any other lines, like not that bad, but in these rucks, it's make or break because you can only fit so many in your team.
Yeah, no, good call. Tom Power, 116, Tim. Any interest from you? He's playing off half back and absolutely racking up. He had 8 marks and 8 tackles on the weekend, and people trade him out. Like Warney and DC both trade him out 2 weeks ago, and he's gone 123, 116 his last 2. Is there any interest from you to potentially bring him back in?
Mate, I got to fix up my ruck line this week. So I mean, look, I think he's a genuine option for some people out there, especially with some of the, some of what's happening in our forward line. But there would there be? I don't know. I mean, there's certainly be a fish for me to fry, but there may be an option for other coaches.
Yeah, he's quite cheap, so definitely someone that coaches could consider. Tim Taranto scored a 111 there, which was good after we thought he might miss a bit of time with that, the back spasms last week, but put up a decent score. Harry Sheasel with 100 points there, right bang on the dot. Jaden Stevenson, 99. A few people jumped on him last week. Colby McKercher scored a 97, had the 31 touches, but just the one thing he's just got to add, hopefully next year, will be just a few extra marks, just the 3 marks for him that kept that score under the ton. Josh Simpkins scored an 80, had a massive quarter. I think it was the third quarter, but outside the third quarter, it was pretty quiet. I think particularly in the last and the second quarter. And I believe that was it from that game. Yep, that was. And Dersma took an amazing mark. We'll see if that gets top couple mark of the year. So cool. We'll move on to, we got to move on to this game. We'll move on to the next one.
Geelong defeated Adelaide by 5 points at GMHBA Stadium. Jack Bowes replaced Sam DeConing in the third quarter after he injured that knee. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Geelong and their ruck stocks there. And then Dan Curtin for Adelaide replaced Matt Crouch in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Just before we talk fantasy, you know what the Crows are, right? The Crows are that shit. The kid that you like, your kid that goes to school, your kid that goes to school, right? They're failing tests, whatever, and the parents go, "Come on, you got to do better. Your school stuff is important." They have a few good tests. They go get some A's and whatever, and the parents go, "Oh, here we go, everything's turned." Then they get an F on the next one, and they fail again. They're unbelievable, the Crows. Anyway,
it's probably the strangest analogy I've ever heard about the footy team, but I share your frustration, Buzz.
Yeah, that was the first one that came to my head, so there we go. But Jeremy Cameron scored a 120. He was fantastic. Took a massive marker at the end of the game as well. Would have helped a lot of draft coaches. Riley O'Brien with a 118. Obviously, that Geelong matchup coming in trumps again with 53 hits for O'Brien. Tom Stewart, 107, just continued on his dominant fashion. Jordan Dawson and Rory Laird both scoring 104. And I know Mitch wasn't too happy with the halfback move for Rory Laird, even though I've been calling for this for ages. But it seems like Crouch in the team, it means that Laird's back at halfback. But
you tweeted about it,
maybe just a little tweet.
He did a bit of a tag. I wouldn't call it a tag, but he certainly shut Brian Myers down. Yeah. So yeah, keep an eye on that for future matchups.
Yeah. And then we'll go. Ben Key's got 100. So anyone that still had him in their forward lines is pretty good there as well. And then we'll go down to the unfortunate Brian Myers, Mitch, 53. We'll talk about sort of a player that you sort of pivoted to, which I thought was a really good move. We'll talk about him in the games from later on. But Brian Myers, 53. Is he just a guy that F6, you're just going to loop him now with Peatling, who you brought in? Is that what you're just going to be doing from now on?
That's been like the go-to, I guess, company line for the last few weeks is like, don't bother making any trades in the F6 line. But I think we've got some new options that we should be strongly considering. So the issue is they play, what do they play next week? I think they play early on again.
Yeah, the third
4:35 on the Saturday. So I don't know if I'd be super comfortable going into a Brian Myers. His role just sucks. Now, I think he has a lot of trouble playing at GMHBA, and he's got Freo at Optus Stadium. So I expect him to be obviously better this week. But it's the role for me that gives me concern. When you've got players like Tom Powell taking kick-ins and getting CBAs, a few players we'll talk about, Peatling and Philippou playing inside midfield roles, there's a world where trading Myers to one of those guys nets you 50 points. Like that, they outscored him by 50 points this week. So who's to say it can't happen again? So I think the line of don't bother trading your F6 with a few new options, I think is starting to be less the case. So yeah, I don't know. It's something definitely to weigh up. It will be dependent on, okay, who do you have to loop? I still love the loop option in that F6, F7 sort of mark, but yeah, I'm not feeling very confident about Brian Myers, just more for his role.
Yeah. Well, even like a Sean Manor, right? Scored a 72, outscored him by 19 points, and he's got a better role. He's going up to stoppages and playing around. So if you've got him, he'd probably be a guy you keep. And Humphries as well got a 71. He was pretty solid as well there. But Billy Dowling had a quiet game, 46, but I expect a bit of a better game from him on the weekend. But we'll talk about him a little bit after, because he could be an option that you go to, one of these other options. But Tim, we'll move on to the Saturday night games. Great game, this one.
Oh, mate, I went down to a local pub to have a meal with some friends, and it turned out the Collingwood Supporters Club was at this pub watching this, and we went in there for the last quarter, mate. It was a hell of a lot of fun being in there, but oh my God, they are one. There's some supporters, that's for sure. Right, Collingwood defeated Carlton by 3 points in front of 87,000 people at the MCG. Subs for this game, Lipinski replaced Jordan De Goey after he did that high-grade hamstring, so he could be out for a few weeks there. And then Matt Kennedy,
they've confirmed
out for the season, is he?
Yeah, 10 to 12 weeks. He's out for the season.
There you go. Matt Kennedy then also replaced Aaron Shearer after he did his hammy yet again, and then a couple other injuries from this game. Curnow did an ankle, and Cottrell did a shoulder.
Yeah, so top scoring, the new man, Newman. That was good to watch on debut. Very happy to have brought him in. I know Mitch has been known for a while. I've been wanting to jump on him for the past probably 6 weeks, and Jordox, I know, knows that. Keep messaging about Nick Newman. So I'm glad to have jumped on him. He was fantastic. I think you definitely need him, but for the last 2 weeks, he's got West Coast to St Kilda, so definitely jump on board. Sam Walsh, 130, took 4 marks over the last month, just took a lazy 10 marks in this game and scored very, very well, looked really good. Jordox, I was keen on him before this game, even with the lower scores, just because of his sort of last 3 in Hawthorn. They're a bit tougher, but then he's got, obviously, mentioned with Newman, West Coast, St Kilda. Is he someone that coaches should be targeting for these last few games?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's an option. I made my thoughts clear on him in the last couple of weeks. I think he's tailing off a little bit. But, it makes a difference when you take 10 marks. That score build completely changes. So, he could be a target. I'm sure the price is pretty juicy. I just think, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of other things going on.
Hawthorn this week.
And the Hawks this week. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it'll be a bit trickier, but I think those last 2 are pretty good. So maybe not this week, maybe the week after. Matt Kenny was sub again, but scored 68 points in under half a game. So just showing he can dominate a game. Nick Dacos, 92. Copped some attention from Hewitt, but Hewitt certainly didn't really know exactly what to do, because Dacos still ran him round and had the 28 touches. Didn't have any marks.
No marks. That's the difference. That's a tag game.
I was a bit shocked that Chincotta wasn't the one to go to him, and arguably that might have been the reason they lost the game. But I'm sure that the inaccuracy was another factor as well. So, and I believe that is it from that game as well. So we'll move on to the other game that was absolutely thrashing.
Shellacking, yeah. Port Adelaide defeated Sydney by 112 points at Adelaide Oval. Subs to this game, Quinton Narkle replaced Darcy Byrne-Jones at 3/4 time, and Luke Parker replaced Corey Warren in the second quarter.
Yep, so the Port duo, Luke, Rosie and Butters, 128 and 126. Obviously, they went really well. A few people would have traded off out of potentially both of them this week, if not over the last couple of weeks. They've now got, I can't remember who they've got this week. Melbourne. Yeah, they've got Melbourne, then they've got the Crows, and they've got Freo. Are you looking at potentially bringing, would you recommend bringing either of them back in to your side?
Yeah, I've still got both of them. It's funny how it works sometimes. My team's been in a less than luxurious position, and it's kind of meant that I haven't entertained trading either of them. And so far, I feel like it's been an all right move. As far as bringing them in, I think there's guys that you can target with better runs to finish the season. As much as how much I love Butters and Rosie to a lesser extent, but we've got guys, a la Jack Steele, that's just going into an extremely juicy run over the next little bit. So if he's a guy that you don't have, I'd probably be targeting him over a Butters. And then, there's a host of other midfielders that you could have a look at that I think have got a slightly better run to finish off. So there's every chance that, both of those boys have ceiling. But depending on the makeup of your team, I would be shopping elsewhere potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree. Probably that player that you don't trade if you got him, and you probably don't look at buying him if you don't have him. So, Dan Houston 126. Now this doesn't make a lot of sense. Sydney meant to be a tough match. I know they won by so much, but scores 126 against Sydney, but then scores a sub 50 against St Kilda. So, but that is the Dan Houston roller coaster, and he would have helped a few draft coaches there. Same with Will and Drew, the 117, and Ollie Wines, the 106. Errol Goulden got it done in a bad loss still with the 101, so that was still positive there. Matt Roberts with a 93 continued his pretty decent form. Tim, could he be an option still for people at D7, or is probably only one you're really looking at getting a bench option is in the forward line?
Yeah, I mean, with his scoring, I guess you've got to consider him, but I'm just not sure that we're going to be picking him in our defensive line with all the other options that we've got there. So, I mean, I guess you could probably bring him into the midfield as well, but I'm just not sure that that's.
Put him in your black book for 2025.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best you can do. You might loop him or something like that, but I'm just not sure that you're going to want to have someone like him on field.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. Potential D7 option or M9 option, but that'd be probably about it there. Heaney, obviously a bad score there with a 68 there. Grundy as well, an 84. Probably similar to English. If you can get him to a Marshall or a Cherry, that's probably a good trade there as well. Mills was disappointed with a 63, and then Parker was the sub. But obviously they're just the two we're watching to see what their roles are the last few weeks to see what they'll have in terms of position for next year. So, cool. We'll move on to the Sunday games.
Yeah, well, as we turn our attention to the Sunday games, just a reminder, if you're joining us on live on X or YouTube, you can let us know your questions by commenting on those platforms, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the show. But now for the Sunday games, GWS defeated Hawthorn by 2 points. Tom Green snapping that goal in the last few seconds there at Manuka Oval. Joe Fonte replaced Max. How do I pronounce that? Grzeski,
I think it's
Grzeski in the third quarter, and then Luke Bruce replaced Cole Shadir in the third quarter. No injuries to really mention in this game.
Yep, so Lockie Whitfield, 137. Now, it's 7 of 9 games since the bye. He's gone over 120, and he's averaging in excess of 135 points since the bye. He's been absolutely fantastic.
He might challenge Cherry for the number one fantasy guy this year.
Potentially, yeah. Carl Amon 124 was also pretty good. He would help the live draft coach, but again, I can hear Tim saying, "Where was this the start of the year when I picked you?" So, yeah, and a lot of coaches saying the same thing. So, Jesse Hogan 110 as well. I hope he gets the Coleman this year. It'd be good to see him win it. Meet 109 as well. Newcomb, another player. Where was these hundreds at the start of the year with a 103? Brent Daniels was amazing that last quarter. Got to a 99 for draft coaches. Darcy Jones 98. Peatling, which we'll touch on in a sec. Toby Green, who I'm one of the only couple of coaches in fantasy that own him, and 94. He's looking good, but I'll probably be trading in this week with a tough matchup. Dylan Moore scored an 88 as well, and then Tom Green 84 in a really tough matchup. But James Peatling, Luke, obviously Mitch jumped on him this week, and a few people did. I don't know if you've actually got him, Luke, but if you do, obviously well done. But if you don't, is he someone you're looking at bringing in this week?
Yeah, I don't own him, Bales, but obviously you mentioned that Mitch jumped on late in the round too because had the E on Myers, didn't like that score, and then got on Peatling to kind of save the round a little bit. He, excuse me, he kind of is an interesting one because in that role that we're seeing him in, the scoring potential's there. He's a guy that tackles and he's playing midfield. There's going to be opportunities there. The issue is, and it always has been, is the fact that when the cavalry return, he's gone. You know what I mean? There's been no, you're playing well, hang on for a couple of rounds. It's just like, they're back, you're gone. So that's where this time of year I think you can get away with it week to week because we're in such a luxurious spot with our trades. But if you were looking for something a little bit different, I got my eyes on the Big Pooh. So Saints love him in that role.
I think we're all looking for a big poo. We'll talk about soon. Just on Pete Lang, yeah, really classy this pod. Just adding to those thoughts on Pete Lang, really interesting. He was inside mid for most of the game, but in the last quarter, he sort of went more forward and Brent Daniels went into the middle. So that's why Daniels had this huge finish. And look, I didn't watch that last quarter, but looking at the numbers and the way the scores shifted, kind of got them back and won them the game, that change. So
for sure,
Cogs and Kelly on the horizon and that little role change that, essentially won them a game today are the only flags I'd have on Pete Lang. I grabbed him as well this week as to swap around F7, F6 with Simpkin, and that'll be my plan moving forward. But anyone who didn't have him, I reckon there's someone with a smelly name we'll talk about in a couple of games' time.
But yeah, no, Brent Daniels, 57 points last quarter. Absolutely massive there. I think that was probably about it from that game. Yeah, I think
maybe Tom Green, just the cautionary, tale of
Hawthorn matchup.
Mids coming up against Hawthorn, because his form was 6 tons, plenty of 120s flying, and then, match winning goal really to get him to an 84. So probably
just to touch on this a little bit, like I traded him out this week, Tom Green to Treloar, and I think it's just like a point to harp on is like fixture versus form, and like you can have a player be in great form, come up against a hard matchup, and obviously drop a poor score. I'm always like a fixture man. Like if you can foresee a hard matchup coming, even if they've been doing well, look at the teams that he's done well against, and if it's been an easy run, like Tom Green had gone 123 against Richmond, Gold Coast, Melbourne, his 3 games beforehand, which were all easier matchups. He comes into a run where he goes Hawthorn, Brisbane, Freo, Bulldogs, which are all, I would say, much tougher teams in their midfield. So I think this was the biggest one. Obviously, he went 77 against Hawthorn last time with Nash, I think, loves to tag him. So I don't know if I'd trade him out now, but it is still someone that it's just like, I think it's just a good reminder that just because someone's form is good doesn't mean a bad score is not coming around the corner.
Yeah, and a bit on the other side as well, like we mentioned with Walsh before, right? So he had Giants, Bulldogs, North Melbourne and Port Adelaide, which I know for a fact Giants, North and Port are all tough matchups for inside mids, and he went under 100 in all those and then comes against Collingwood, who's a good team, goes 130. So as you say, that fixture sort of thing, it doesn't sort of always relate to mid form and stuff, and players can turn it around if they're still in that same role. So beautiful. All righty, we'll move on to the next game.
Yeah, cracking game here. Essendon defeated Fremantle by 1 point in front of 35,000 people at the MCG. So Owen David Jr. replaced Nick Bryan in the 4th quarter, and James Aish replaced Neil Erasmus in the 3rd quarter.
Yeah. Well, the sponge was back, and I'll tell you what, I want to cut that sponge up and put it in the bin. Bloody Luke Ryan, unbelievable, 121. It was always going to happen. I knew that when I traded him out. But 121, Jordox, could we bring him back in?
Oh, probably. No, I don't know. I'd need to hear more. I'd need to hear more about the game style and what happened. I mean, he's had 30 touches, 9 marks. It's, he was always going to do this, but he could turn back into a pumpkin next week and score 60. So, those that traded him out, I wouldn't fret too much just yet, unless he goes on a run. Then you can fret.
Yeah, he had 10 kick-ins, so that obviously did help a little bit to that score. But yeah, they did certainly switch it a little bit more than what they have. So
well, he had seven kick-ins last week, I'm pretty sure, for a 60. Yeah, so that was a third of his score. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Zach Merritt, 118. He was good. Helped certainly one of the big reasons why Essendon did get over the line in the end there. Jai Caldwell looked good, back to the sort of pre-last couple of weeks form that we'd seen. Good so response. He was really good there. In terms of his CBAs, they were back up. So Parrish had the most with 23, Merritt 22, and Caldwell 20. So they were the clear top 3. So hopefully that's what they continue with moving forward. Andrew Brayshaw, one of Mitch's boys, with a 109 there as well. and Luke's boys as well, because Luke's also got him as well.
That's three in a row.
He's jumped on the bloody bandwagon.
It's been kind.
And another one of your boys that I think you boys have traded him out. Hayden Young was pretty good with a 106. So,
not me. I stuck fat with Young.
are you holding on to him, Luke? He's got Geelong this week. Decent matchup. Is he someone you're going to be holding on to? I think he's got 2 tough matchups after that, but this week.
Yeah, I had the decision whether to trade him or Jordan Clark out this week. That was kind of the 2 that I was tossing up, and just forecasting that week ahead to Hayden Young, Geelong, tackles, midfield. That kind of was enough to get me over the line and keep Youngie. So hopefully I can see the fruits of that this week coming, and then potentially shift off him before a tougher run with GWS and Port Adelaide.
Yeah. Jordan Clark, 93, stock standard score from Jordan Clark, which he's done for most of the year. Nick Martin, as you said, Luke, saved his score. Definitely was on a 22 at halftime and got to an 86 as well. So he does have Gold Coast this week, so it's a good matchup. But then after that, he's got Sydney, Brisbane. So Sydney, I'd expect some attention going to him there. And then Brisbane. Archie Robertson, good in his debut for Essendon with an 80. So if you need a downgrade option, he could be someone that you do potentially look towards there. And Caleb Sarong. So he scored a 92. So, Mitch, this week, Geelong, great matchup. But Tom Atkins, I expect to go to Sarong this week, and I expect to be a pretty hard tag. They match up quite well. And then Sarong then goes into the Giants, then Port. Is he regardless of the matchup, could he be a trade-out option this week?
It could be. I'd definitely be trading him over a Brayshaw. I think I'd back in the Geelong matchup. I think we've seen Tom Atkins tag players before, and I wouldn't call it a hard tag. I don't think it's a Windhager on Tuke Miller kind of tag. I think he went to Dacos, I think, a few weeks ago, when Dacos had like 20 touches in the first half, and then they kind of tightened it up a bit in the second half. So I think he's a kind of guy, and Strong was getting attention in this game too from Caldwell.
Yeah.
So I think he's the kind of player that the reason he was scoring so poorly was because of those tags prior to his 123 against Melbourne. So I think even in tag games, he gets to like the 80 to 90, and in a positive matchup against Geelong, I'm hoping he can do well. I think he is definitely someone you look to target to trade out in round 23, though. So I'd be planning for that for sure, because I think those are much tougher matchups.
Yep, definitely. Beautiful. We'll move on to the final game of the round.
Yeah, Brisbane defeating St Kilda by 56 points in front of 42,000 people at Adelaide Oval. Late changes in this game. Ryan Burns was out late with illness and replaced by Angus McLennan, and Eric Hipwood had a groin complaint, so was replaced by Bruce Revel. Subs to this game, Paddy Dow replaced Bonner at half-time, and Bruce Revel replaced Charlie Cameron at three-quarter time. No injuries to note from this game.
Yep. So top scoring this game, Jack Sinclair with 132 points. He was fantastic. Had a bit of a mix of CBAs with 11, and he had 4 kick-ins there. Timmy comes up with 2 really good matchups. Got Richmond this week, then Geelong. Is he someone, if people are looking for a defender, would he be near the top of your list?
Yeah, maybe Nick Newman and Jack Sinclair would be right up the top there, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Jordox, you looking at Sinclair potentially bringing in this week yourself?
Maybe not for my side, but absolutely. I'm spewing because he was a really good target a couple of weeks ago, and he's really rewarding owners now with that run, and again under the roof of Marvel, and having a bit of mix of on ball and behind the ball. It's kind of similar to what Tom Stewart's been doing. He's an absolute target.
Yeah. Ryan Marshall, 131, continued on his very good form there, and is still the number 1 scoring player in fantasy at the moment. And if you don't have him, is probably one that you want to try and bring in, because he does finish off with Geelong and Carlton. So 2 really good matchups that you want him for in the prelim and grand finals of your fantasy leagues. Jack Steele, 108, continued on his ton run there. Lockie Neal as well got a 109, and Dane Zorko scored a 105 in this game as well. Nasai scored a 91, which was also pretty solid. But the guy that we were going to speak about is Matthias Philippou. Mitch, he looked really good again, had 96 in terms of his CBAs. He was second behind Jack Steele for CBAs. So he's got Richmond this week and then Geelong, 2 great matchups. So I think we all agree he's a great option. Could coaches, is he an F7 still for you, or could coaches even go and put him on field at F6 if that cash maybe down from a Myers or someone like that can help facilitate maybe that ruck trade or another trade, another line? What are your thoughts at Philippou?
I'd much rather Philippou than Grind Myers. I'd much rather Philippou than probably Simpkin. I might even Toby Green, Dylan Moore. Like, he's got the role, he's got the matchups of the next 2. And I think with the Saints season basically over, like, that's not going to change. He's a guy they're gonna back in and keep going there. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like. He's a big scorer in the juniors. He has like a nice diversified stat line, tackles and marks in there as well. So there's a lot to like with Philippou. I'm kind of kicking myself I didn't go him instead of Peatling, but yeah, I think
it made sense to have a look first.
Yeah.
If you're strapped for cash, I love the move, especially if you're not in that luxurious position where you can make him an F7. But if you get aggressive and make him your F6 from one of those guys, Bales, and that unlocks, like you said, that ruck trade. Yeah, I like the aggressive move there. I mean, it'd be awesome to have him at F7 and just have that loop ability. But yeah, if it gets you to where you need to go on the other end.
Hey, Mitch.
I was just going to quickly say maybe this is the week you don't want him as a loop because he's got Richmond, so maybe he might go better than if you take an 80 or whatever on your bench. So, but yeah, Tim, go ahead.
What is the order of that going?
So I was going to ask Mitch to kind of talk me through. You said that you kind of wish you'd gone the Poo over Peatling, right?
Yeah.
So I do think it's going to be probably a common comparison this week, the Poo versus Peatling. So can you kind of walk me through how you see that comparison?
Yeah, look, the concern with Peatling is the people coming back. I thought that Peatling would score more this week, and that's sort of why I went there. And he scored 1 point more, so yay, 1 point. But I think obviously with the matchups, the next 2, and I just think that he's won that position. He's not there because there's people who are out. Like it's his for the rest of the season, I believe.
He was tearing out the VFL.
He's been tearing up the VFL. He's scored well as a junior in the role that he's playing now. So I just feel like he's a much safer option compared to Peatling, who we've seen score well and then be shifted out and things like that. Even, like you said before, in the last quarter of this game, he moved a bit more forward. So
it's not a scoring thing necessarily. It's more the uncertainty of his role.
Yeah, plus the draw. I mean, it's both. It's both things combined. I think he wins in both categories, really.
You got to think too. Philippou just had 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, straight back in. Scores a 96 in a game that they lost by just under 100 points against a very good midfield. I think we're only scratching the surface with Philippou and that run in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, he's an absolute goer.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get an injury on the Tuesday. So that he's out for first like the last time.
Bales.
Anyway, Josh Dunkley, 83 as well. I could just hear literally I don't know why I said it. I could hear everyone listen to the pod. Bales, you idiot. But anyway, yeah, I'm dickhead. Mason Wood, 55 as well, was also really bad. So again, one of those forwards that you'd rather a Philippou and guys like that over, and even a Brad Hill that a few people looked at with the 46. And then Josh Dunkley with an 83 as well. Say that score as well. He was on 40. I think it was 45 points at 3/4 time. Then he got a +4 added shortly after and had a 38-point last quarter to get to there. So
now I didn't watch any of this, but from what I've heard, Dunkley and Steele went head to head. I wonder if Steele was doing a bit of old school Steele tactics on him with the taggy roll. Could be wrong, but it was just a very poor score from Dunkley in what, as we said, was a huge win. So it was very surprising.
Yeah. Did any of you guys watch sort of the first half of that game? I watched the back half of the game, but any of you boys watched first half and what he was doing?
We were recording our podcast during this game, so we were watching the scores closely.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I'm not sure. From what I saw in the second half, there was no attention. It was just more that just in the third quarter, he just didn't look like getting near it. He just sort of was just in the stoppage in the middle of the ground. It was chipped around.
The game was done. Some players do go into self-preservation. I had a really sicko feeling that Zorko could be someone they sub out in the last quarter, and thank goodness they didn't, because he had 39 points in the last quarter and saved his score. But I hadn't considered that before the game. I thought St Kilda would be more competitive, but I could just see Brisbane, and they sub Charlie Cameron. Was he injured? Was that?
No, he was we had some,
no, it was no, left. Yeah, he was a bit injured. So yeah, anyway, you got to watch out for that. Those last quarter subs. If we're going to see some big margins, I mean, this week we've seen 2 games. One was against the number 1 side, so that's not going to happen often. But the Saints, getting done by nearly 100.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Well, that's the games. Because we've gone for 55 minutes, I think we'll just touch on 1 or 2 things. We won't do individual questions tonight. We'll do that on Tuesday night when we get Warney on, and hopefully we've answered a heap of questions anyway. But the one thing I just want to ask you boys, so obviously people looking at rucks this week, I think Cherry and Marshall are the top 2. I just want to go around the tables, and if you had to pick one of the 2, who would you be going? Tim, I'll start with you first. You had to pick one of Marshall or Cherry. Who are you going?
I think Marshall's got the better run or the better matchups come ahead. So I think it's particularly this week. So that's who I would rank number 1.
Yeah, Jordox.
I would have agreed with you last week, Timmy, but no, it's Cherry, and it's just Cherry. It's Cherry. You know, this is a guy who has 85 points just from tackles and hitouts. He's on 85 before he even touches the pill. And he's doing it every week. The score build this guy has with the tackles. Sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean that.
Go on. No, go on.
Anyway, I answered the question, so that was it. The X-Men.
Nothing to do with you, Jordox. It's all to do with this man.
Yeah, sorry, Leggy.
Should have him.
Yeah. Luke, if you had to pick one of the 2, who are you going?
Yeah, I think I'm still going Marshall. I don't know if my opinion swayed because I've already got the X-Meister, but based on what X did to Richmond this week just gone, well, Marshall goes into Richmond, then into Geelong, which we know can be fruitful, and then depending on what Mr. Worldwide's doing in the last round, it could be a semi-ruckless Carlton as well. So I'm going the Marshmallow.
Yeah. Mitch?
Yeah, I'm going to say Marshall. But the reality is, like, they're both almost must-haves. Marshall's gone 130 plus in 2 hard matchups, is what I'll say. Essendon are a hard matchup for rucks. Brisbane are a hard matchup for rucks, and he's just whacked on 2 130s. Yes, Sherry's been good, but they've been good matchups. He continues to have good matchups, so it's not like it dries up anytime soon.
Well, who's North got this week? Don't they have the Eagles?
West Coast.
Yeah,
good Lord, have mercy.
But if you can go 130 against Brisbane and you come up against Richmond, 130 in a thumping.
Yeah, that's a good point. McInerney's pretty hard to score against, isn't he? That's a good point.
So I think
he didn't have many hitouts, Marshall. I think he only had, in terms of hitouts, he only had 18 compared to McInerney's 36. So
this is Marshall's thing. Like, he's a midfielder. He's a genuine midfielder. Yeah. 9 marks, 7 tackles, kicked 2 goals, 17 touches. He's just a really, really good player. Unless we see Tom Campbell come in, that's the only flag. But I don't think we'll see that.
Yeah, hopefully we don't see Dum-de-Dum. But yeah, no, I'd be going Marshall as well. But Mitch, I was feeling your pain, obviously, as a non-Cherry owner. That first quarter, when Cherry was on 23-0 tackles, I thought, oh, here we go. Yeah. We might not have to go and sit through a 150.
Yeah.
And then he just popped that in the second quarter, 7 tackles. And then he just put up a 54 point. Then he went, what did he go? 43 and then 30. Yeah. And then all hope was lost for non-Cherry owners. So
one of my trades was going to be English to him this week, but I didn't want to do both my trades in the first game. And I was waiting to see what Grind Myers did, which, look, apparently I was going to lose 50 points either way. So, yeah, it is just painful. But anyway, we'll move off. Stop talking about Cherry.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think that we'll probably wrap it up there. It's about nearly the hour, so we'll wrap up.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up there. So, to the ball boys. Boys, thanks for coming on. Luke, mate, to you, best of luck for this week. To Mitch, I can't back you against my boy Bales, mate. So I hope you crash and burn this week and Bales goes through it. But no, obviously, best of luck for the rest of the season, mate. And We are cheering for you, mate. Hopefully you drive away with a fucking Hilux. So hopefully it goes well, mate.
Get in.
Why don't you let all our listeners know where they can find you and if there's anything you want to share with them.
You can find us
Don't look at me.
at Ball Boys. Fantasy is my Twitter. You can find Luke Rodjo 17. I think is that your tweet? You don't have a tweet.
You might find me.
You might find it. Or you can find us in YouTube. I think our review podcast would be premiering, I think, as of 2 minutes ago. So as soon as you finish this one, go and check that one out and get our thoughts fresh off the round. And basically, yeah, any podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Ball Boys Fantasy, go and check us out and give us a 5-star rating review.
Beautiful. Bales, anything you want to let the people know?
No, just head over to, if anyone has any questions, head over to askmeonq, spelt qu.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. And also go to askmeonq.com/ballboys. If you want to ask Mitch a question, I think you'd much rather go to Mitch, who's currently top 10. But if you'd like to go to the Content Creators Cup Premier for 2024, then you can head over to the link I've got. So yeah, but we're both of us can help you with anything regards to trades, captains, whatever, or you can send through your whole team screenshot, type it out. If you don't know what to do, you can do it there. And yeah, if you'd like to hit those links, then our links are in the description for our videos and then the Ball Boys videos as well. And then as Tim, as I always do, my trades for this week, I already know what they're going to be. So I'll be transparent, Mitch, for you. I'm going Toby Green down to Philippou, and I'm going Tim English up to Tristan Cherry. Just getting it done. So that's what I'm doing.
Nice.
Any ideas yet, Mitch?
I've got a few ideas rolling around.
Let me just get my notebook.
The Tim English to Sherry's a trade. I'd flagged this week to get rid of Rory Laird. The move to halfback is interesting.
You have to trade him this week. I can't be going in a unique matchup with Laird going up against me.
Yeah. Look, I prefer his role in the next matchup against the Dogs than I did as a midfielder. So that's an interesting one I'll have to ponder. I also love the look at Sinclair's run the next couple. So whether or not I do a Jordan Clark or a Dacos to him, see what Peatling scores in that F6. There's a lot of different scenarios. So yeah, I don't really know 100% what I'm going, but those are the sort of areas I'm looking at.
Roger, anything for you, mate?
I might be able to. I got a little bit of cash pocketed there, so I haven't crunched the numbers just yet. But I might be able to convert one of these bench guys that I got floating around to the Pooh Meister, and then maybe look at ditching Nick Martin and getting Sinclair across halfback. We'll see. Math's not my strong suit, so I got to let the app do it for me later.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. All right, Jordox, mate. Anything you want to let the people know, and what are your trades for this week?
Yeah, so don't forget, jump on to on X at AFL Subs for the last few weeks of the year. Turn your notifications on and never miss out on the late changes and the subs just under an hour before each game. So
highly recommend.
Yeah. We're up to 773 followers, which is really good. So it's great that we're helping 773 coaches. And then for my trades, look, I do have a bit of cash, and I just love to go English and Grundy to Marshall and Cherry. I don't think I'll quite be able to extend that far. So, yeah, look, something like, I don't know, Isaac Heaney down to Philippou, something a bit weird and wacky. I've got to do something. I need to find some points. So, Philippou and Cherry would be my two targets, same as Bales.
Beautiful. Yeah, well, I'll be looking to upgrade my ruck line from English and Grundy to Cherry and Marshall. I might have the cash, but we'll see how we go. But apart from that, guys, thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. Special thanks to those who sent in questions. Please follow, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review wherever you're joining us. And finally, don't forget to tune in live each week on X or YouTube, whether it's after the final sign of the round or for our Tuesday night Q&A, which this week we've got a special guest, Warnie, the godfather of AFL Fantasy, will be here to answer your questions. So make sure you tune in Tuesday night. Then, of course, we've got our Friday pre-lockout chats. Guys, Rage Chateray, best luck with the research, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you, and bye for now.
See ya.
See ya.
All right, everyone, thanks for watching on YouTube. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Make sure you do go and subscribe to the Ball Boys if you haven't done that already. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.